To measure the front length, the measurement should be taken from where the neck meets the shoulder down to the second joint of the thumb. Length can also be adjusted up or down, depending on client preference. We recommend for a person with odd size not to choose a shorter style, as it might not be best suited to his body shape. To measure the back length, start from the lowest point of the collar and go vertically down the center of the back to a position that is approximately 2/3 of the hip and groin. It can also be added or subtracted according to the client's requirement. To measure the chest circumference, run the measuring tape around the fullest part of the chest. Ensure that there is room for one finger behind the tape. To measure the middle waist, run the measuring tape around the thinnest part of the middle waist area. To measure the hip circumference, run the measuring tape around the widest part of the hips. Be sure that the pockets are empty and ensure that there is room for one finger behind the tape. And when measuring for a two-piece suit, the hip circumference of the pants is the same as the hip circumference for the blazer. To measure the sleeve length, start with arms relaxed. Measure from the shoulder joint down along the curvature of the arm until 1 centimeter past the joint of the wrist. This can also be decided by the client's desired sleeve length. To measure the cuff circumference, start at the joint and run the measuring tape around the wrist 1 time. To measure the shoulder width, keep both arms down and relaxed. Measure from seam to seam and ensure that the tape follows the contour of the shoulder's top line. To measure the circumference of the bicep, run the measuring tape around the widest part of the bicep. Ensure that there is room for one finger behind the tape. To measure the front chest width, measure the straight distance between the 2 armpits at the front of the chest. To measure the back chest width, measure the straight distance between the 2 armpits at the back of the chest. To measure the stomach circumference, run the measuring tape around the widest part of the abdomen. Ensure that there is room for one finger behind the tape. To measure the outer seam, start from the upper part of the waistline and measure vertically down along the side seam to the bottom of the foot. Do not measure to the bottom of the shoe if the client is wearing one. The measurement is also determined by the client's dressing preference. To measure the waist circumference, starting right above the belt line, run the measuring tape around the waist. Ensure that there is room for one finger behind the tape. To measure the total crotch, the measurement is taken from the front of the waist, wrapped between the legs, and up to the top of the back of the waist. To measure the thigh circumference, run the measuring tape around the upper part of the thigh. Ensure that there is room for one finger behind the tape. In order to measure the calf circumference, measure around the fullest part of the calf. Ensure that there's room for one finger behind the tape. To measure the opening of the bottom of the pants, use the currently worn pair of pants as reference. Measure around the bottom opening of these pants. The size of this opening depends entirely on the client's preference. To measure the front length of the vest, the measurement is taken vertically from the neck shoulder point to 4 centimeters below the belt. To measure the back length of the vest, measurement is taken vertically from the lower part of the back collar to the lower edge of where the belt would sit.